swear. I checked my back seat before starting the car, and it was empty. But 20 minutes later, when I looked in my rearview mirror again, there was a woman sitting behind me. I had been driving alone for almost 2 hours. I never heard a door open. I never stopped the car. So to this day, I still don't know how she got inside. And what scares me the most is what happened after she started speaking. This happened to me 3 years ago during a late-night drive through northern England. My name is Daniel, and at the time I worked late shifts as a graphic designer for a small company. Because of my work schedule, I usually drove home very late at night. But after what happened on that road, I never drive alone at night anymore. The night, it was October 2019. Cold, rainy, and incredibly dark. That evening, I had driven about an hour away to visit my friend Oliver. We spent the night watching football and talking. By the time I left his house, it was almost midnight. "Stay the night," Oliver told me while standing at the door. "It's pouring outside." "I'll be fine," I said. "It's only an hour drive." That decision still haunts me. I got into my car, started the engine, and checked my mirrors. Front seat, passenger seat, back seat. Everything was empty. I pulled out of Oliver's driveway and began driving toward the highway. For the first 20 minutes, everything was normal. Rain tapped softly against the windshield, and the wipers moved back and forth in a slow rhythm. The road was mostly empty, which I didn't mind. I actually liked driving at night. Felt peaceful, quiet, almost relaxing. But eventually my GPS suggested a shortcut. A narrow road called Blackridge Road. I had heard about it before. Locals avoided it at night. Some people said strange things happened there. But I never believed those stories. To me, it was just another creepy urban legend. And honestly, I wanted to get home faster. So without thinking twice, I turned onto Blackridge Road, the empty road. The moment I entered that road, the atmosphere changed. The streetlights disappeared. Tall trees surrounded both sides of the road like dark walls. My headlights barely lit the asphalt ahead. It felt like I was driving through a tunnel of shadows. The rain got heavier. My windshield fogged slightly, forcing me to turn on the defroster. For several minutes, I drove without seeing a single car. No headlights, no houses, nothing, just darkness and forest. That's when my radio suddenly cut out. The music stopped mid-song, and all that remained was loud static. I frowned and tapped the radio. Nothing changed, just static. "Great," I muttered. I switched stations. More static. Every single channel was dead. The strange thing was that my phone also lost signal at the same time. No bars, no internet, no GPS. It was like the entire road had suddenly gone offline. But I didn't think much about it. At the time, the figure on the road. About 10 minutes later, I saw something ahead. At first I thought it was a road sign. Then I realized it was moving slightly. As my headlights got closer, I saw it clearly. A woman, standing on the side of the road, alone, in the rain. She wore a long pale dress that clung to her body from the water. Her dark hair hung down over her face. She didn't move when my car approached. She just stood there, completely still. I slowed down. Part of me thought it was strange. What was a woman doing alone on a road like this after midnight? But another part of me felt bad. Maybe her car broke down. Maybe she needed help. So I pulled over beside her and rolled down the passenger window. "Hey," I called out. "Are you okay?" For a moment she didn't react. Then slowly, she lifted her head. Her face looked incredibly pale, almost unnaturally pale. Her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. "My car stopped," she said quietly. Her voice sounded strange, soft, almost echoing. "There's no signal here." That part was true. "Do you need a ride?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "Just to the next town." Something about her made me uncomfortable. I can't explain why, but leaving her alone in the rain also felt wrong. So I unlocked the doors. "You can get in." She didn't open the front passenger door. Instead, she walked to the back of the car and opened the backseat door. I remember thinking that was a little odd, but I didn't question it. The door closed behind her. I pulled back onto the road and started driving again. The silence. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were rain and the tires rolling over wet pavement. I glanced at the rearview mirror. She was sitting directly behind me, perfectly still, her head slightly lowered, wet hair covering part of her face. "Where are you heading?" I asked. "Millbrook," she replied softly. My stomach tightened. Millbrook was exactly where I was going, but it was still about 25 minutes away. "You live there?" I asked. No response. Maybe she didn't hear me, or maybe she just didn't want to talk. Another few minutes passed. Then suddenly she spoke again. "Do you believe in ghosts?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Not really," I said. She laughed quietly, but the laugh sounded wrong. Not happy, not amused, just empty. "You should," she whispered. The temperature dropped. A few minutes later, something strange happened. The temperature inside my car suddenly dropped. At first I thought maybe the AC turned on by accident, but when I checked the dashboard, it was off. Yet the cold kept getting worse. Within seconds, the car felt freezing. I could actually see my breath. My arms were covered in goosebumps. "Is the window open back there?" I asked. "No," she said calmly. I checked the mirror again. She hadn't moved at all, still sitting perfectly still, looking down, her hands folded in her lap. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, very wrong, but I kept driving, trying to ignore the growing feeling of dread in my chest. The mirror. 5 minutes later, I looked in the rearview mirror again, and for a brief second, my heart nearly stopped, because the back seat looked empty, completely empty. I blinked, and suddenly she was there again, sitting exactly where she had been. I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe it was just the angle of the mirror. Maybe the darkness made it hard to see. That had to be it. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. So I tried to start another conversation. "You said your car broke down," I said. "Where was it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lifted her head and looked directly at me through the mirror. For the first time, I saw her face clearly, and what I saw made my entire body freeze. Her skin was pale, almost gray, but her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just darkness, and she was staring straight at me, smiling. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Her eyes were completely black. No white, no pupils, just darkness staring back at me through the mirror. And she was smiling. Not a normal smile. It was slow, unnatural, almost like her face wasn't used to smiling anymore. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. My heart started pounding so hard that I could hear it in my ears. "Are you okay?" I asked nervously. The moment I spoke, her smile slowly disappeared. She lowered her head again, just like before, and the car went silent. For a moment, I wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe the lighting had distorted her eyes. Maybe I was just tired. I had been awake since early morning. Yeah, that had to be it. But the cold inside the car kept getting worse. It felt like the temperature had dropped below freezing. My breath was visible in the air now. My fingers were starting to feel numb. I checked the dashboard again. The heater was on. Yet the car felt colder every second. Something was very wrong. No help. And somehow the woman who had been sitting behind me had completely disappeared. The sound. Then I heard something. A soft sound behind the car, like wet footsteps on asphalt. Slow. Dragging. My heart began hammering again. I slowly turned my head toward the rear window. At first I saw nothing but darkness and rain. Then a shadow moved behind the car. Someone was standing there. I could barely see the outline, but I knew exactly who it was. The woman. She was standing directly behind my car, just staring at me through the back window. My entire body froze. She slowly began walking toward the driver's side door. Step, step, step. Each footstep sounded heavy, like something wet dragging across the road. My breathing became shallow. She stopped right beside my door. Then she leaned down slightly and looked directly at me through the window. Her face was only inches away from mine, and now I could see her clearly. Her skin looked gray, almost like a corpse. Water dripped from her hair onto the glass, and those black eyes stared straight into mine. Then she spoke. "You shouldn't have stopped." My entire body went cold. Before I could react, she suddenly slammed her hand against the window. Bang! I screamed and turned the key again. This time the engine roared to life. The headlights turned on again. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and sped down the road. In the mirror, I saw her standing in the middle of the road, watching my car disappear into the darkness. The end, or so I thought. I didn't stop driving for the next 20 minutes. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely control the steering wheel. Finally, I reached the edge of Millbrook. Streetlights appeared. Houses. Civilization. I pulled into the first gas station I saw and parked near the entrance. My heart was still pounding. The cashier inside looked confused as I rushed through the door. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded, trying to calm myself down. "Yeah, I just had some car trouble." I grabbed a bottle of water and walked to the counter. That's when I noticed something strange. Behind the cashier, there was a small newspaper clipping pinned on a board. It had a photo of a young woman. My stomach dropped instantly because I recognized her. It was the same woman who had been in my car. The pale skin, the dark hair, the same face. I slowly pointed to the photo. "Who is that?" The cashier looked at the board. "Oh, that story," he said. "That happened years ago." My throat felt dry. "What happened?" The cashier shrugged. "About 7 years ago, a woman was killed on Blackridge Road." My heart stopped. "She was hitchhiking late at night," he continued. "Some driver picked her up." "What happened after that?" "Nobody knows exactly. They found the car crashed into a tree." He paused. "The driver survived, but the woman disappeared. They never found her body." A cold wave washed over me. "Disappeared," I whispered. The cashier nodded. "Yeah." Then he said something that still keeps me awake at night. "Some drivers claim they still see her, standing on that road, asking for a ride." I slowly turned toward the gas station window and looked at my car. My blood turned to ice because the backseat door was slowly opening by itself. And inside the dark reflection of the window, I could see someone sitting in the backseat again, smiling, with completely black eyes. At first I thought it was just another car on the highway, but after 30 minutes, I realized something terrifying. No matter how fast I drove, no matter which road I turned onto, that car was still behind me. And the strangest part? Its headlights never got closer, but they also never disappeared. This happened to me in the winter of 2021 while I was driving back home from a late shift. I work security at a warehouse outside the city, and my shift ended around 2 a.m. Most nights the drive home was quiet, but that night felt different from the moment I started the engine. The air was cold and fog covered the highway. Visibility was terrible. I turned on my headlights and slowly pulled onto the empty road. For the first 15 minutes, everything seemed normal. The road was empty except for one car far behind me. Its headlights were small dots in my rearview mirror. I didn't think much about it. Late-night drivers often used that highway. But after about 20 minutes, something strange caught my attention. The car was still behind me, at the exact same distance. Normally cars either pass you or fall behind, but this one stayed perfectly positioned. No closer, no farther. Just two headlights staring at me through the fog. I changed lanes slightly. The headlights moved with me. "Okay, weird," I muttered. Maybe the driver was just keeping distance because of the fog. Still, the feeling in my stomach started growing uneasy. 10 more minutes passed. The car was still there. Same distance, same speed. Now I was sure something wasn't normal, so I decided to test it. I accelerated from 60 to 80 miles per hour. My engine roared slightly as the car sped forward. I checked the mirror again. The headlights stayed exactly the same distance behind me. My chest tightened. "How is that possible?" I whispered. Either that driver had perfect timing, or something else was happening. I slowed down suddenly. The headlights slowed down too. Still the same distance. Now I was officially creeped out. So I took the next exit off the highway, a narrow road that led toward the forest area near my town. Most drivers wouldn't follow someone onto a random road like that. But when I checked my mirror, my heart dropped. The headlights turned onto the exit behind me, still following. Now I was sure. Whoever was in that car was following me intentionally. I pressed the gas harder. My speed climbed past 90 miles per hour. The road curved sharply through the trees. Fog covered everything, but those headlights never disappeared. Still there, still the same distance. Felt impossible. Finally, I reached a small bridge that crossed a river near my town. Right before the bridge, I slammed my brakes and quickly turned into a dirt parking area. My car slid slightly before stopping. Then I turned off my headlights. The road went dark, completely silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the other car slowly drove past the entrance of the parking area. But something about it made my entire body freeze. Because the car didn't slow down. It didn't look toward the parking area. It just drove past like I was never there. And when its headlights briefly lit the inside of the vehicle, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was no one in the driver's seat. The steering wheel was moving on its own. The car kept driving across the bridge until the fog swallowed it completely. I sat there for almost 10 minutes before moving again. When I finally got home, I tried searching online for accidents on that road, and I found something disturbing. 5 years earlier, a man had died in a car crash near that same bridge. Witnesses said his car kept driving forward even after the crash. To this day, whenever I drive at night, I sometimes see two headlights far behind me, always the same distance away, always following. I picked up a passenger at 1:30 a.m. during a rideshare shift. She got into the back seat without saying a word. But 10 minutes later, my phone showed something that made my blood run cold. Because according to the app, I never picked up anyone. This happened when I was working as a rideshare driver during the summer. Late-night rides were usually good money, so I often worked until 3 or 4 in the morning. One night around 1:30 a.m., I received a ride request from a small road near the outskirts of town. The pickup location looked strange. It was near an old cemetery, but a ride is a ride, so I accepted it and drove there. The road was dark and quiet. Streetlights flickered weakly. As I approached the pickup point, I saw a woman standing near the sidewalk. She wore a long coat and had dark hair covering part of her face. I stopped the car beside her. She opened the back door and sat down silently. "Good evening," I said. No answer. I assumed she was tired or didn't want to talk, so I started driving toward the destination on the app. For the first few minutes, everything felt normal. But the silence inside the car was uncomfortable. Usually passengers at least say hello. This woman didn't speak at all. I checked the rearview mirror. She was sitting perfectly still, looking down, her face hidden by her hair. "Long night?" I asked politely. No response, just silence. Then suddenly my phone made a notification sound. I glanced at the rideshare app, and my stomach instantly dropped. The screen said, "Waiting for passenger." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. That couldn't be right. The woman was literally sitting behind me. I checked the pickup location again. According to the app, I was still 2 minutes away from the passenger. I slowly looked at the rearview mirror again. My blood ran cold. Because the back seat was empty, the woman was gone. I slammed the brakes and turned around in my seat. No one. The door hadn't opened, but she wasn't there. Then suddenly, a cold whisper came from right behind my ear. "Thank you for the ride." My entire body froze. I slowly turned my head, and in the reflection of the side window, I saw her face inches from mine, pale, smiling, with completely black eyes. The next second, the car door slammed shut by itself, and the back seat was empty again. I ended my shift immediately after that. The next morning, I checked the news, and I found something terrifying. 10 years earlier, a woman had been murdered near that cemetery after getting into a stranger's car. Since then, many late-night drivers claim they sometimes pick up a passenger there. Passenger who never appears in the app.